I'm out of the trailer. If you have a 2025 Ram 1500 and you're trying to protect the back of your bed because maybe you might have some items back here that might be a little bit more sensitive to the elements, this is going to help keep out a lot of snow, water, or anything else like that. So let's check out the etrailer soft roll-up tonneau cover. Now there are plenty of different types of tonneau covers out there, and you probably already noticed that this one looks pretty soft, and that's because it is. So there are some pros and cons to that. The pros are they're going to be a lot more of a value option, a lot more on the economic side, but they'll still prevent a lot of that water, snow, or ice from getting in here. What's also really nice is that they're super easy to work with and really easy and compact. But one of the downsides is they're not going to be as secure as like a hard tonneau cover. And that's because if someone came by here, they could just walk over here, cut right into this, and grab whatever you have back here. So if you have anything that is more on the expensive side or that you're worried about getting stolen, then I'd recommend going with a hard style. But we can take a closer look at how this one's going to operate. It's pretty straightforward. You just have to open up your tailgate. You'll find that we have two straps here. You can pull on either one, and that's going to release your tonneau cover. And this is going to be a roll-up style, so there's fold-up styles too. But what I like about more of a roll-up style is that this is very compact, especially with being a soft style. Because with a more of a quad tri or a folding style, that takes up more of a section of your bed. As opposed to this, everything's rolled up pretty neatly right here and can kind of be moved around a little bit. So if you do need to put a lot of items back here, you definitely still have that ability. Now we do have more canister styles too, but the drawback to a canister style is that it's going to take up underneath your bed as well. So if you need that full bed access underneath here, this is where this really shines. Now of course this will block a little bit of your back window, but honestly that's not too big of a deal because this is almost lined up with your back seats back here, so it shouldn't really get in your way if you are using your backup window to back up. And this will be held down with two buckles on either side, and these straps are going to help keep it in place so it doesn't unravel on you. Now since we are talking about how it's going to interact with the back of your vehicle, we can get a few measurements. So the first one I'm going to get is going to be that distance underneath the tonneau cover. In the rolled up position, this is going to be just a little bit over 21 inches, which is pretty good. That's pretty much lined up with your bed rails. So if you have anything like a fifth wheel in here, even if you have this fully rolled out, then it wouldn't get in the way of that. What's also nice is if you want to carry some fridges or anything that needs to be put in here, this doesn't take up much room. Should be fine in that respect. To actually get a measurement on how much room this is taking up in your bed, we can get that right now. And that's going to be a little bit under 6 inches. So you're not going to be missing much having this in your bed. Now, of course, if you have this completely loaded up with some taller, larger items that need to be pushed all the way back here, then this will take up a little bit of space. But it is nice that this can kind of move a bit. But what I also really like about this is that it's really easy to install and uninstall. But we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. Next up, let's see how far this is sticking up. So we can get two measurements. We can see how this is sitting on just as the bed rail. That rail is sitting at a little bit under an inch. So with the tonneau cover on it, it's probably going to stick up maybe slightly over an inch with it all the way unrolled. But with it in this position, it's going to sit a little bit under 5 inches. Again, that's not going to sit up too high and it shouldn't block you from using your back window. But like I said, this is also going to be really easy to install and uninstall. And the main reason is going to be this style of clamp. All you really have to do is turn this hand knob, and then once that's all the way loosened up, you can take it right off. There's going to be 3 per side, so for a total of 6 clamps, and then you can take this whole thing right off your bed. So it doesn't really take any time, especially if you need to take this through a car wash. You probably don't want this tonneau cover on there while you do that. So that's really something nice if you want to keep your vehicle clean too. And right next to that clamp, you notice we're going to have there's kind of foam pad underneath it. It might be a little bit hard to see. What that's doing though is just adding some extra protection for your vehicle so it doesn't scratch anything up and keep a lot of that water from seeping through. Something else to think about though is where these rails are sitting. So right here where we have that stake pocket, that's going to be blocked. So that's one of the downsides to this one. I know we have some other options on our website that really just kind of sit inside of your bed, which those are nice and they sit a lot more low profile. They give you more of a sleek design to the back of your bed. The downside is it's going to take up more of that bed space. So if you can't really afford to lose any space, then this really shines for that. And since we're over here anyways, we can kind of take a closer look at this adjuster right here. What this is meant to do is to make sure that your tonneau cover stays nice and tight back here, because a lot of times over a lot of use, these do loosen up a bit. So what this is designed to do is you can actually adjust where this bracket sits. So once this does loosen up over time, you can actually push this out some to make sure you still have a good tight fit. And to really show you how this works, I'll just unravel this all the way. So we're going to have this end here. And it's just going to flip out and seat into place right here. You're just going to apply pressure until this locks into place. And with that locked into place, you can see that we have this really smooth fit on top. Now there's a couple reasons why we have this smooth fit. One of those reasons is we also have these supporting beams going across. There's going to be 3 of them. And what that also does is when water is really beating up or pooling on top of this tonneau cover, instead of sitting in the center where that could weigh down and stretch this out, what it's going to do instead is it's going to give it somewhere to run off, and so it's not sitting on top of the tonneau cover itself. And you're going to have this hook and loop over here on the edge of it. What that's meant to do is so you can come by, pull it downwards, and make sure you still have a nice tight fit. In my opinion though, I think this is a great option, especially if you're just looking for something to keep out any of that extra snow or water from inside the back of your bed. And really it is a great theft deterrent, because a lot of times with any type of tonneau cover, if someone can't see whatever's in your bed, then it's going to be out of mind as well. Now, if you are looking for that option that offers more security, etrailer does make another option, and that's going to be a hard fold-up tonneau cover. That's great if you do want that extra security, but the downside is it's going to take up more space in your bed. So if you want something a lot more compact, lightweight, and easy, or really easy to install or uninstall, then this is going to be probably one of your best bets. If you are curious to see that installation, just stay tuned. We'll walk you through the process. To start off the installation, I like to lay everything out. And the way I like to do it is kind of putting everything to their relative sides. So I'm going to put my rails on my bed rails, and I'm going to put all the clamps that I need for that side over there. And then I like to keep all the hardware in the center that we'll use to install everything. And I also like to grab a tape measure to make sure everything's even. And of course, right next to me, I'm going to have the tonneau cover itself. Then we're going to come over to both of our bed rails, taking one at a time, and we're going to push this over as far as we can till it kind of lines up with the end of our bed rail. You can just kind of roughly place it there. It doesn't have to be perfect. And we're going to do this on both sides. And this is just going to help making installing our tonneau cover itself to the rails a bit easier. And to actually install the tonneau cover itself, all you're really going to do is grab it, kind of place it here in the center like I've done, and then we're just going to grab this tab over here with that set screw in it and slide it into the rail. Now, you're probably going to have to move this rail back a little bit to get everything lined up. We're going to push it in. Now, if you're finding that you have some resistance, you might just have to adjust that bolt or that set screw, either by loosening it up a bit or just sliding it back some. But after when you do that, it should slide right into place. And once it's fully installed in there, then you'd take that Allen key again and then just tighten this down until you have this pretty on there pretty good. We have a bunch of resistance. And once you have both rails installed, now we're going to come by and adjust this a bit. So you lift up on it a bit, you find that you have this weather strip. We want to make sure we lay that out or pull it out some so it sits flat on top of your bulkhead. You can just run your hand underneath there and pull it out with your fingers until this is all the way flush with that bulkhead. But now we're just going to kind of adjust everything to make sure everything's in the correct location and is even. So you can do this one of two ways. You could just walk over here and kind of gauge it, making sure it looks pretty even. But I have to be a little bit more precise, so I'm going to grab a tape measure, measure from the side to the end of that bed rail to make sure it's even on both ends. Once I've done that, I've adjusted everything. Then I also like to make sure that our tonneau cover's in the right location. So I don't want it sitting too close to our cab where it's going to be making contact, but I don't want it shifted too far back towards our tailgate where that weather strip won't be on that bulkhead. So once you've adjusted that, then we can start securing this down. But now we can move on to the clamps. So this clamp is going to be in 3 parts, and there's going to be 3 of them. They're pretty easy to use. You're going to have this hand knob on the bottom. I recommend actually removing that before you install this. Just makes this process a little bit easier. I'm going to set that down. Separate the bottom of the bracket from the top of the bracket. And we're going to come over to our bed rail. Now, you notice we do have this yellow taped area. That's actually telling us where not to put the clamp, because that's where our beam's going to go across. So you can either put it on this side or the other side of it. Now I want to try to get this as close to the edge of my bed, just so we're getting a good even fit all the way through. But something we want to watch out for is we don't have anything conflicting with us underneath this bed rail. So I'll try this out just by sliding that bottom of the bracket back into place and seeing how this fits. If you're feeling that it's wobbling around a lot, this probably isn't going to be a great fit for you. But right now I think I found a pretty flush spot. Once you've done that, you'll hold it in place or grab that hand knob again and then tighten this down. Now we don't want to tighten this down all the way. I just want to get a little bit of resistance because we might need to make some adjustments later on in how this tonneau cover sits. But after when you fully install this one, then you take the other 2 that will go on the same side. You're going to place one in the center as best as you can, and then another one closest to your tonneau cover as well. So after when I fully installed this, I found that I had to make some adjustments. So before I had this bracket in front of that taped off area, but the issue was this rail was sticking too far in and we had some overhang. And so that was kind of narrowing in at the bed of our truck and would not give us a great fit. So I tried moving this back and was able to push this in a bit more. And you can kind of see how this bracket's grabbing on there a little bit better now too. You want to make sure that it's perfectly contoured to that rail. We have that indentation in there. Once you've done that and your rail is more flush with your bed rails, then you know you have a good fit. And now we can just test this out. So I'm just going to undo this buckle and unravel this. And here we're just trying to make sure everything's in the right location. We don't have too much overhang on either side. And it's going to play nicely with the bed of our truck. So you're going to have some of this on there. You just take it right off. And we're just going to put it into the end of here. We'll find that we have some resistance. You'll just pull down on it till it latches fully. Then afterwards, I like to just come back through, make sure this hook and loop is grabbing on here all the way. It's not acting funny, like we don't have too much overhang or anything like that. And the cover's looking pretty smooth up top. The last check I like to do is just make sure that this tailgate will shut completely. So I'll just move a few things out of my way. Try this out. And that's looking pretty good. This is looking like we're getting a good seal underneath. So after when you have this installed completely, then you can come back through and tighten those clamps the rest of the way down. Now, a little note about when you tighten these down, you want to make sure when you do this, you don't over tighten it, so you don't want too much resistance because it could strip something. You just want enough where you have a fair bit amount of resistance, but you don't feel like you're exerting too much force behind there. And we're also going to grab these little end caps. They'll just be these little rubber pieces like that. That's just going to go right underneath this handle where we have that bolt coming through. That's just to give you a little bit more protection just in case you do store anything else in here. But when you have everything fully installed, then we can just close it up once again. Test it out one more time. Then make sure nothing's shifted or changed. Shut the tailgate too. And it still feels pretty good. And if yours does feel pretty good too, then you can take it out for a ride. But that's just a look at the etrailer soft roll-up tonneau cover on the back of our 2025 Ram 1500. I'm Matt. Thanks for watching.